Okay, hello, good evening and welcome. This is the October 17th, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting of the East Long Meadow School Committee. I will call the meeting to order 6:01. The meeting is being both audio and videotaped, and I would ask that everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We have roll call. John, you want to start us out tonight?
John Fitzpatrick, student representative.
Amy DeLenta.
Elizabeth Marcian Boucher.
Gregory Thompson.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Sarah Trulio.
Pamela Blair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have minutes for approval tonight. 2 sets.
Move to approve the October 3rd regular session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah,
I will second.
second by Beth. Discussion. Just remind me to mention to Sam to separate those out in the future, just the regular and executive as the agenda items.
Okay.
Because they're separate votes.
Yeah.
Try to remember. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0. Okay, one more set. please.
Move to approve the October 3rd executive session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah,
I will second.
second by Beth. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Okay, we have committee and subcommittee communications. Sarah, would you like to start us out?
Sure. Last week, I was able to join Gordon at the first collaborative committee meeting. I thought Abby and Chris did a really great job leading their first collaborative meeting. It was a very welcoming environment. I was happy to be a part of it. We discussed the teacher recognition event, the Educator Hall of Fame, heard some great insight into how the start of school has begun in terms of both the academic aspects, but also the social aspects. We touched upon the very beginnings of the school calendar for next year and looking forward to meeting on a monthly basis with that really unique perspectives of the educators from each of the buildings was really great to hear. And I feel like just brings forward another voice to this committee. So excited to be a part of that. And then I know I was one of many who was in attendance at the football game on Friday night. So I won't speak too much to that because I'm sure others want to share, but it was just a great event, a great community event, and can't speak enough about the fans and the team and their spirit and how they never gave up. So kudos to them. They came up short, but they definitely did not come up short when it came to their athleticism and their perseverance. So good luck to them.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Beth?
I'm good today. Thank you.
Amy?
Set today.
Yeah. John?
So this week we have Spirit Week at the high school. So that's taking place all week, and on Friday we'll have the pep rally. And then the senior class is having our semi-formal dance on Saturday from 6:30 to 10. So
Nice.
that's about all.
Excellent.
Where are you having the dance, John?
It's at Twin Hills in Long Meadow.
That's a change up, right?
Step up.
Different venue.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Right down the road. I just wanted to mention, we did get a chance to tour all 5 of the schools. Superintendent, assistant superintendent, director of curriculum. My friend Amy joined us for 2 of them, Birchland and Maple Shade, and then Antonella was on a couple as well. So schools look similar to what they've always looked like, but we got to see a lot of kids, a lot of students. Gordon did some dancing and singing and general tomfoolery with the kids, which was great to see. So good to get out there and talk to some folks and see some stuff in action. So thank you for setting that up,
Sure.
Gordon.
The energy's been great throughout the first month and a half. And that was something that actually was mentioned at the collaborative committee as well. So that's really exciting to see.
Okay. We will move forward for the opportunities for visitors to speak. We have none this evening. We are going to table 5.3.1, our curriculum update, as Heather is out this evening and she will join us again in 2 weeks. We'll have that back up. So we'll move on to some policies and procedures that we discussed last meeting. We had some changes for it.
We did. So you have both the bullying prevention and intervention plan, and then you also have the policy on harassment, bullying, discrimination, hate crimes. I believe in the packets, the plan might be first. So just going in the order of the packets. The highlighted areas I left in, those were areas that we had changed and discussed last time. But one of the revisions for actually both documents was to just make sure that we consistently have throughout the document, if we have parent, that we have and or guardian, or maybe parent / guardian, depending on how the sentence reads. And so I've gone through the plan and I've made those revisions, and I believe I've captured all areas where we have parents and where we did not. In some cases, we had guardian already, but we didn't have it consistently. So just to give you an idea, I tried to put it in italics. So on page 2, in that paragraph towards the bottom, the second to last sentence, where it says engagement efforts drafting. There I have parent / guardian information materials. Have that again under identifying resources. It can be a self-referral, a parent or guardian referral, teacher referral. And so those were the revisions that were discussed at our last meeting.
You'll take them back out of italics.
I'll take them back out of italics. Yeah, that was more for, you could
For
see
us,
that,
okay.
yeah, that we had gone through it. Also take out the highlights.
Right.
Actually, you know, I may keep those in when I communicate out to the district that these are the revisions that we've made.
Yep. Questions, discussion? It's not a motion to accept. Mentioned plan.
Are the definitions the same? I know that was the other question, like whatever appeared in one was gonna appear. Other, is there a part of that where it was,
That's a good point.
let's see between the two in terms of,
In terms of cyberbullying and
Uh-huh.
hostile environment.
Yep. just trying to find that.
I believe they are, but I didn't specifically go back through that, so I do. Can
Just wanna double check real quick.
ensure that, yeah.
So it's there, so- Second to last page, that's where they are in the
In the
plan.
plan, right. And then they are on the second and third page on the in the glossary. I don't think we go into as much detail in cyberbullying as we do in the plan in the policy. I can certainly make those exactly the same if people would like that.
I guess, should they match? I mean, policy should match our plan in terms of
Sure.
language. Not to be stickler, but if we're
Mhm.
defining bullying in one way in the plan and in a different way in the policy,
I think bullying is.
that was just an
Yeah.
example, sorry.
No,
That was a bad example.
I think we should reference the law possibly,
Okay,
which we don't do. We do in the plan, but we don't do in the policy. And so I can bring that in. And then cyberbullying has a much larger definition in the
Aggressive.
plan. Yeah. And so we should probably put that in. So it looks like the revisions will actually be on the
Okay.
pulling from the plan.
okay.
We're gonna change it again.
I think it was a recommendation from last time that
Yep.
just didn't get
I did
finished.
not, finish
So
that.
I'm not-
we'll bring it back.
I can bring it back.
Sure. Let's do that.
You want to go over the other revisions before?
Yep.
So on the policy, there were two areas. Again, you wanted to be consistent with parent and guardian. That was also something that we went through and did, and I think I put those in italics as well, wherever those were found. But also we changed in the very first paragraph, which was originally highlighted, the East Long Meadow School Committee, that paragraph. Remember, we wanted to be more inclusive. So it now reads, the East Long Meadow School Committee is committed to providing a safe, positive, and productive educational environment where all can achieve to their highest potential. I think it was where students, but we wanted to make sure that we included everyone in that. And then unchanged, no student shall be subjected to harassment, intimidation, discrimination, hate crimes, bullying, or cyberbullying.
Any questions on the policy revisions?
I apologize, I
We
missed that on
could,
the definitions.
We could accept that tonight. If the committee is so inclined. Right, because you're gonna change the plan
Well, I think we're gonna change the glossary
on the plan or on the policy.
on both. Yeah,
On
so-
both, okay.
we're
So we'll bring them
making
back.
Definitions, yeah. I apologize, I missed that.
Thank you for taking it back.
Part of the writing process, revision. Thank you.
Hey, we have new business approval of robotics field trip.
In your package, you have a letter from Mr. Page, principal of the high school, regarding the field trips that the robotics team would like to take, actually starting at the end of this month and then through the beginning of February, roughly 8 trips. They're day trips that usually happen on Saturdays, and in the letter, he outlines the fact that his 11 students currently participating, and therefore, he's always going to be a chaperone, but obviously they would also bring parent chaperones as well. Very similar to what they've done in the past. They did have a brief hiatus, as we all did with the pandemic, but they're back in action. And our team usually has done quite well.
So I move to approve the robotics team field trips as proposed by Mr. Van Buren for the dates October 29th through February 4th.
Motion made by Beth,
A second.
second by Amy, discussion.
Good luck.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0.
So I'll let them know. I think somewhere in the January timeframe, one of those usually comes down to their qualifications for the, I want to say Worlds.
Yeah.
That's right, John. I think it's Worlds.
I think so, yeah.
I don't know if they have nationals, but the Worlds has been in Kentucky in maybe the last 2 times that at least I've known about it. So it's actually quite the undertaking, because they have maybe 1 or 2 teams that qualify, and then they fundraise, and that team or teams, those teams get to go with chaperones and parents to this competition that goes for a few days. It's kind of very cool, actually. We've done well there too. The LPS on the map
Good stuff.
globally.
Globally, yes. Okay, that's, we have one more piece of business tonight. We have the Massachusetts Association of School Committee resolutions that
Exciting.
Beth will be reading forward, and we will vote in favor or not against each resolution.
Okay. So in case you weren't sure, they have a conference once a year, and at the conference, all the school committees that do attend can vote on these. Different school committees throughout the state create these on their own, and then they put them through to a committee, and then the committee picks what they like. And this is what we have. So the first one has to do with safety of students. And so be it resolved, I'm going to go down a little bit, that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls on the great and general court to join with other states in the passage of so-called sanctuary laws to ensure such children and their families have the power to enjoying in safety and tranquility their natural rights and the blessings of life as guaranteed by the Constitution of the Commonwealth. And part of this is because in 2011, there was an act relative to gender identity. And we, of course, it's passed in the state of Massachusetts. And they just want to make sure, based on things that other states are doing, that this stays in place in the state of Massachusetts and doesn't get drastically changed in any way.
And actually, that act changed a lot of what schools were doing and how they were structuring things. If you remember 2011, 2012, 2013, there were a lot of changes in terms of how we set up our code of conduct, structured things that we were doing with regard of setting up the building and monitoring the building and so forth.
Policies, everything.
Right,
And it's good stuff, I think. So,
I think so.
yeah. So I think we vote on these one at a time.
Yes.
And how do we vote in the affirmative? Who you want me to vote in the
We
affirmative?
will vote for.
You make the motion.
Designee of the school committee to either vote in the affirmative of resolution 1 or not. So yes, the motion would be to make it in the affirmative.
Okay,
Then we would vote either to do that or not.
okay. So should I make that motion?
Yes.
So, okay, I move that on resolution 1 regarding sanctuary laws for transgender students, the designee votes in the affirmative.
Excellent. Motion made by Beth,
I second.
second by Amy. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0. Thank you, Beth. Number 2.
Okay, sometimes you can't just do the therefore be it resolved, so. Okay, so this one's a little more tricky. Right now, the Special Education Reserve Fund caps the balance 2% for the Special Education Reserve Fund to cover the cost of unanticipated or unbudgeted special education costs, including the cost of out-of-district placements and special education and transportation. So we're at 2% right now. What this is going to resolve is that they increase it from 2 to 5. So, and we'll discuss, and I think maybe you might talk to us about this as to understand it a little more. Be it resolved that the Mass Association for School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts Legislature to amend Chapter 40, Section 13E by deleting 2% of the annual net school spending and by inserting the following 5% of the annual net school spending. The rationale is that current prices for special education day programs in Massachusetts collaboratives can cost a district between $50,000 and $70,000 per student, and private provider day programs can cost districts between $70,000 and $100,000 per student. These prices do not include the cost to transport the students to these special settings, which is part of the overall price and can fluctuate to cost. Private residential special education settings can cost a district between $120,000 and $250,000 per student. So they're hoping that the 5% cap would allow for deeper investment of the municipality's own monies toward preventing mid-year budget crisis and positioning the school district to have the ability to provide the appropriate public education in the least restrictive setting to all students.
We don't have this fund though, do we?
We don't have this.
Do not.
Okay.
Oh, it's a moot point for us.
Right, but it's not, it's
It's a very valid
a valid point.
to say.
It's a good thing, like, I'm wondering, are they
Just enables the
expecting?
district to be able to, and we are hearing,
Town to do that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see this as a good thing. Special ed is increasing drastically. I don't want to quote a percentage, but I will during budget season. It was a very high percentage that it's estimated to go up next year, these residential placements and out-of-district tuitions. We don't talk a ton about them for obvious reasons, right? It's confidential information. But what we do know is that the district spends a significant amount of money on special ed. We're lucky that we have had the circuit breaker. We've talked about the circuit breaker. We were able to roll that over completely last year, which was wonderful. I'm just about to do my first quarter for you all. So at the next meeting, I should have that for you. I think it might be eye-opening what we are spending on special ed for out-of-district placements and contracted services. That's another discussion at another time. But I think this is a good thing. It enables districts to try to plan better, because we all know, you weren't here, Amy, but we had to go to town council when we didn't have the funds and we had students move in and we just want to always avoid that if possible.
So I can understand, some towns have a special reserve fund for this,
Right.
and they want to be able to add more money to it.
Correct.
That is my understanding. I don't know if you know more about it, Gordon.
Yeah, the law allows the town and the district to work together to develop a fund, which basically becomes a revolving account. So it's not subject.
Controlled by the school,
I mean, I think
Yeah,
it's
it would have to
mutual, yeah,
I would think.
but it's set up in conjunction with the town.
Okay.
But it's not subject to where, if you have remaining money at the end of your fiscal year, you turn back to the town and it goes into
The regular,
to free cash.
okay.
This would be
Back
money
in-
that's set aside,
Huh,
so that it's there.
I learned something new.
I mean, you have,
But we don't
you have, we don't have it.
But I didn't even know it was,
But it's a
Thing.
Yeah, and this is really targeting,
We have circuit breaker.
correct.
So does
We
it.
have circuit breaker, but with circuit breaker, whatever we roll over must be expended the following year. With a revolving type of account, I don't think that must is there, but I don't know that for sure, but I think the rules are probably a little bit different with it.
okay. So I guess I'll make it toward the affirmative and we'll go from there. I move that on resolution 2, to increase the maximum balance allowed by the Special Education Reserve Fund to be voted in the affirmative.
Yes. Yeah, sure. We know what you mean.
Yeah.
Motion made by Beth,
Okay.
second by Sarah. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Those opposed, nay. Carries 4-0.
Thank you.
So I'll probably just read it all because it makes more sense that way. Whereas this is resolution 3, membership of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Whereas the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education has broad powers to set education policy and enact regulations for Mass public schools. And whereas the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education has the power to choose a receiver to replace an elected school committee. And whereas the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education governs educator licensure in Massachusetts. And whereas practicing educators and school committee members are prohibited from serving on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. And whereas the teaching profession is the only profession or trade in Massachusetts where the holders of a license are prohibited from serving on the governing board. And whereas professional expertise and a commitment to public governance should not disqualify a person from serving in a leadership role. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mass Association of School Committee calls for the enactment of legislation to repeal the provision of Massachusetts law that prohibits practicing educators and sitting school committee members from serving on the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. Be it further resolved that the Mass Association of School Committee calls for legislation to reconstitute the Board of Elementary and Secondary Educators by including members with expertise as licensed educators and members with expertise in public school governance. So they want teachers and school committee members to be part of the board, which I know.
Yep.
That's makes sense.
It's an interesting fact that the only area is education where it's not allowed.
Yeah. Okay, so I move to vote in the affirmative for resolution 3, membership of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Motion made by Beth,
second,
second by Sarah. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
I,
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, this is also by Arlington. They're busy school committee. It's gotta be said. These guys do stuff. Anyways.
Second only.
They really do. They love it. Okay. Resolution 4 is preserving local governance of Massachusetts schools. All right, whereas the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed has exercised its power to take over school districts in Lawrence in 2011, Holyoke in 2015, and Southbridge in 2016. And whereas the placement of the public schools of Lawrence, Holyoke, and Southbridge in receivership has removed their respective school committees from their role as governing board for their schools and has replaced local governance with a state receiver. And whereas the Boston Globe analysis of test scores, graduation rates, college enrollment, and a dozen other metrics in Lawrence, Holyoke, and Southbridge show state receivers have failed to meet almost all its stated goals for the districts. And whereas the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has no plan, strategy, or timeline for restoring local governance and accountability to the voters of Lawrence, Holyoke, and Southbridge. And whereas the Mass Association of School Committee asserts a strong system of local governance and accountability is the foundation of excellent schools. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mass Association of School Committees calls on the Commonwealth of Mass to restore local governance and accountability for Lawrence, Holyoke, and Southbridge Public Schools no later than July 1st, 2023. And be it further resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls on the Mass Legislature to enact legislation to limit any further state takeovers to a term of no more than 3 years. I feel if they can't figure it out, I don't know. I mean, how do you guys feel? I don't think Holyoke's in any better state than it was back. And I know they had a really good school committee. I mean, they still do, but they're more figureheads, I think, than.
Yeah, they no longer have the same power.
Yeah.
True.
I don't know. What do you think on this, Gordon?
I think time limits are
Time limits are good.
probably something that should be in place.
All right.
You know, we have to all act under a plan, so it'd be good to see a plan there as well.
Okay. So I'll have it vote in the affirmative. I move to vote in the affirmative for Resolution 4, preserving local governance of Massachusetts schools.
Motion made by Beth,
A second.
second by Amy. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0. One more, please.
Okay. Resolution 5, personal finance literacy education, where students will need to make wise financial decisions to promote financial well-being throughout their lives, and where students will need to develop actionable strategies to manage their futures, including managing their budgets by developing savings plans, navigating credit and debt, and creating blueprint for financial higher education or their careers, and where students need to be informed consumers when they make everyday purchases for both large and small items. Whereas with governance and financial literacy, students have increased chance of affording and attaining college education. And whereas without prior long-term financial planning, higher education plans do not come to fruition for many students due to extraordinary tuition costs. And whereas college tuitions and other financial choices such as credit card debt and loans can saddle students with a lifetime of debt due to their inability to pay back student and other types of loans. Therefore, be it resolved, the MASC file legislation that would have the effect of ensuring that all students have exposure to personal financial literacy curricula and ultimately graduate from high school with a lifelong knowledge of how to be fiscally responsible to avoid being deterred by financial woes. This legislation should ensure that students at various levels would benefit from curriculum in Massachusetts public schools, which would include content and personal financial literacy. I don't know if we want, I mean, do we want to, this would be another required course for all of our students?
I don't know, do they say required in there? We actually have the courses available. I think
Offer them.
the key is we do offer them. So I think it's access is what they're looking for. I don't think they said
Exposure to
required.
personal finance
Right,
literacy
exposure.
curriculum.
Yeah.
Ultimately, graduate from high school with the lifelong knowledge of how to fiscally responsible. It's in the last paragraph.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, there is another rationale on the second page, I'm sorry. As many students and their families today do not plan far enough ahead for college tuition. Many students are not able to attend institutions of higher learning or need to drop out due to inadequate funds. This resolution will help to ensure that students are knowledgeable about the best options available to them in order to be fiscally responsible and receive the best advice in attaining their goals by being educated about the best options for paying tuition, use of credit cards, securing personal loans, including car loans, et cetera. Could that almost be something like the guidance department does to discuss with kids as part of a?
I think you need more of a curriculum there.
Yeah.
And we have a business course. We, you know, if this became a required course, we might look to offer more, maybe free, and then you do a more senior course in the business department and let the business department develop that curriculum.
feel like these standards fall under the humanities department for some reason in the new framework.
You might be right.
Everyone thinks they're math and they're,
No,
I
it's,
understand what they're I guess I feel that,
they don't fall under math because you
don't.
can't put it under a math domain. That's why I think we had to put it, we put it in the business department. Yeah, which actually,
yeah,
business teachers, it's something that they look forward to, actually. I think they liked building that course.
I mean, I know, like, does it fall under the same idea of civics where they want us to, they're requiring us, want us to teach civics and then that takes up a class and now they're pushing. Now, these things don't really go that far, you know what I mean? They've got to listen, they're not necessarily going to listen to it, but do we want to make another requirement? Because I understand the rationale of what they're saying, but quite frankly, if you're talking about your finances in high school, there's no way it's going to make you all of a sudden afford college, which it's just not. We know this. You know, you do dual enrollment, you do APs, you do these things, you try to take a year off of school. That's ways too. So I don't know.
is this something that, does it have to, forgive my ignorance on
No,
this?
that's all right.
Obviously, I'm brand new to this discussion. Is it something that, number one, just has to occur at the high school level? And also, can it be something that's embedded throughout several different courses at the high
Courses,
school
right.
level and not a standalone course? I mean, looking at some of this that they're asking for, it's not necessarily needing to just
Like
be in one
one
standalone
set,
course. It
I
could be
know.
embedded throughout several.
I mean,
I think you can embed in several courses, but we took a few years ago the change in some of the standards to mean that we actually needed a course to offer it, but it's not a requirement right now. This would drive it further into a requirement. However, remember, this is a resolution. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna, even if
Right.
it passes at the
they're,
conference,
right.
they still have to get the legislature to pass it.
Right.
And then therefore DESI would put the regulations out.
They have lobbyists that'll
Mm-hmm.
go and like lobby on behalf of us and try to get it to, so whatever we vote on here, and even if they vote on it there, it's just, this is what we would like, and this is what they hope to get.
I mean, it makes sense to, I think the point you were making, to think about some of this at the middle level
Yeah.
and build that knowledge. So that, I mean, that might be
Fifth grade
something.
math, when you're talking about percentages and that kind of thing, but do we want to make it something that's set in stone that could become a
Can't put it in the
requirement?
math domain.
I know.
It's got to be in there.
It is, I double checked, it's in the history and social science, it's not a math.
We tried that way back.
So I'm going to ask for the affirmative again, and then people can vote as they wish.
Yep.
Okay, I move to vote in the affirmative, resolution number 5, personal financial literacy and education.
Motion has been made by Beth,
Second.
second by Sarah. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay.
I'm gonna go nay.
Motion carries 3-1.
Yes. And I will vote. All right.
One more.
Okay, one more right here. Okay, resolution 6, establishment of a regional school assessment reserve fund. Whereas regional school committees and Commonwealth are tasked with providing financial sound budgets designed to meet the needs of their students, just like all public schools in Mass. Whereas municipalities and regional schools are presented with regional assessments which can fluctuate dramatically based on enrollment percentages changes and can be further exacerbated by unbalanced adjustments to the equalized valuation of property, a key metric in the state's formula used to calculate the minimum required local contribution. Whereas in 2016, the state of Mass passed the Municipal Modernization Act, which aimed to grant more local control and encourage financial efficiencies where possible. The precedent exists in the statute to support the creation of Regional Schools Assessment Reserve Fund, which could be used to offset abnormally large increases to a municipality's regional assessment. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mass Association of School Committees calls upon the Mass Legislature to enact or amend legislation which permits municipalities to establish a regional school assessment reserve fund. Chapter, let's see, proposed language for legislations could include to amend MGL Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 40 by inserting Section 13F as follows. Chapter 40, Section 13F, Regional School Assessment Reserve Fund for payments toward future regional assessments. Any municipality which accepts this section by a majority vote of the municipality's legislative body may establish and approve or transfer money to reserve fund to be utilized for upcoming fiscal year to pay for the regional assessments in years when the regional assessment increases by more than 35% over the previous year's regional assessment. The balance in the reserve fund shall not exceed 10% of the annual regional assessment for the municipality. Funds shall only be distributed from the reserve fund after majority vote and the municipality's legislative body in years when the regional assessment is more than 3.5% in order to bring the regional assessment down to no less than 2.5% increase. The municipality treasurer may invest the monies in the manner authorized in section 54 of chapter 44, and the interest earned thereon shall be credited to and become part of the fund. So I don't know who came up with their numbers, but it's,
So this would be something that
yeah,
would be certainly beneficial for a regional district and the towns who make up that regional district. It would not be applicable here.
okay. So I'll do the affirmative again. I move to vote in the affirmative on resolution 6, establishment of a regional school assessment reserve fund.
Motion made by Beth. Second by Amy. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. 0. Thank you, Beth, for reading through those. Yes. And with that, we have arrived at the end of our meeting. John, thanks for being here tonight.
Of course.
And Mr. Mackey, thank you for your time as well this evening. And from there, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Motion made by
Second.
second by Beth. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Good night.